All right. Well, should I just start? Are we ready to go?
Yeah.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. The sun is shining in through the window, and so I might disappear in a poof of sunlight in any minute, but is it cold where you are?
Yeah. And it's dark and it's snowing.
It's snowing.
Yeah.
Where are you actually?
Minnesota.
In Minnesota. I'm in Minnesota too. I'm in Duluth.
Oh, we're in Allendale, Minnesota.
Yeah, our school is in Allendale, but we have kids from New Richland, Heartland, Allendale, and Geneva.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's very cold. And do you know what red squirrels are doing right now?
Hibernating.
They actually don't hibernate.
Oh.
They stay awake all winter, and they're busy finding their big caches of pine cones that they made during the fall. Have you ever seen pine cones being dropped out of a big pine tree?
Yeah.
And there's a squirrel up there. And that's what he's doing. He's piling up pine cones, and then he has a big midden, it's called, where he eats, and all the seeds pile up into these big piles, and he keeps his seeds handy for the wintertime. So we should all be like red squirrels, right? Stay active out of doors, even when it's cold. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to share my screen because I have a few pictures. And so just to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to get right to your questions. So these are some of my books. I write for readers your age. This is some of my historical fiction. And then I have a mystery series set on a Minnesota lake called Enchantment Lake. And I have a few picture books. And then there's The Littlest Voyageur. And what do you think, how would you categorize this book, do you think? If you had to put it in a category.
Fiction. No. Yeah, because there were squirrels don't talk. I should put realistic. Yeah, exactly.
I might have to have Laura, Ms. Garlow.
We were discussing, they were thinking fiction, maybe historical fiction because there were voyagers, but squirrels can't talk.
Exactly.
Maybe realistic.
I think you're right. It's fiction. It is historical fiction because it does take place in a different time, and it is based on real events. You know, there were voyageurs who traveled these waterways, and a lot of this, what's in the story is really accurate about how they lived and how they traveled. And it's also kind of a fantasy because squirrels, you know, squirrels aren't really able to do some of the things or other animals that they do in this story. So I guess it's kind of called historical fantasy. And I didn't even know that was a category until I wrote this book. So we all learned something new. So why did I want to write about a little red squirrel becoming a voyageur? Well, for one reason, I like to paddle a canoe, as you can see in this picture, and that's my actual canoe and what the heck is in my boat with me? Is that a badger? Some kind of little creature. It's my dog. But my son calls her Badger because she does look kind of like a badger. I also really enjoy red squirrels. And I watch them out the window of my writing house. I'm not in my writing house right now because it doesn't get very good internet. But when I'm there, I spend a lot of time staring out that window. And what I see sometimes are little red squirrels running along the branches and along those fallen trees over the creek that's down below there. And in fact, here is a tree outside my house. And I want you to see if you can see how many baby red squirrels. Is that working? Are you seeing that movie?
Yeah.
And these are babies, and count them. See if you can figure out how many there are. If- I think there are 3. I only ever saw 3 at the same time. There's, whoop, see here, up here comes another one. So I really enjoy watching these little squirrels and their acrobatics up in the trees. And I thought it would be fun to write about one. They really have big personalities. So that's a fun thing to write about, as a creature with a big personality, even though they're very tiny, especially these because they're babies. So another thing that happened at our house is my husband put out a bird feeder on a long metal pole that kind of would jiggle a little bit. And in the middle of the night, we slept in the bedroom just over where this bird feeder was hanging. And in the middle of the night, I would hear this thwack, boing, thwack, boing. And I thought, there's something going on with the bird feeder. So I crept downstairs and I took a flashlight and I shined it out through the glass doors right out there, and I could see the bird feeder. And what do you think I saw? Not that. Flying squirrels. Yeah, I did not take this picture. This is a beautiful picture that I did not take, but this is what I saw. Soaring from the tree and landing on the bird feeder, and then it would swing and it would make that pole that it was on bounce like this. So that's what we were hearing up in our bedroom. Wow. So that made me very interested. You know, there are flying squirrels around, but you don't see them very often because they're pretty nocturnal. They like to be out at night a lot of the time. And then when they live way up in the trees. So you don't necessarily see them moving around up there. But that made me very interested in learning more about flying squirrels. And of course, I just had to put one in the story. So that's how Monique got to be part of the story. So, okay, what do you think I had to do once I started writing this story all about voyageurs? I had to do some research, right? And this is a hint. What did I do for my research? I actually can't, when you all talk together at the same time, I can't hear, but maybe your teacher can parse that out for me.
Matthew, what do you say? So one of them said went to a museum. What did you say? Or maybe you did a play about voyageurs?
Oh, you know what I did? I wrote the words for an opera that had voyageurs in it. That's funny that you thought of that, but that's not what this picture is. The picture is from going to visit Grand Portage, where there is the old fort, like the ones the voyageurs go to. It's been reconstructed. I don't know, has anybody been there?
No.
Well, if you ever get way up the North Shore all the way to Grand Portage, be sure to visit Grand Portage National Monument, because then you can see the actual stockade exactly like it's described in the book. And the picture, the illustration of it that Cheryl drew, she drew it from the stockade that they have there now. And they also have a little visitor center that has some images and interesting things about voyageurs, including showing how much they carried. As you can see, this guy is carrying the big bundles and a barrel And then he has a strap over his head to help carry that. So they were very strong, as it's pointed out in the story. And I also went to Voyageurs National Park, which is way up on Rainy Lake on the Canadian border. And there they have a lot of information about voyageurs, of course, and including the furs like they traded for and the trade goods that they used to trade for the furs. So you can learn a lot at these interesting interpretive centers that there are around. I also looked at pictures. There are some beautiful paintings about voyageurs, and just to get us an idea of, what they were doing and what they looked like, and the weather and the landscape and so on like that. So I do a lot of research for my historical fiction, and it is one of my favorite parts. I actually really enjoy it. But now let's see what else. I forget what else I had here. Oh, a little picture of from illustration from the book. Yeah. And this is my house where I do a lot of my writing, right? Where you saw the window earlier. And me in it writing on a piece of paper with a pen, which is how I like to write. I do that first, and then I type it into the computer, but I really like to write with a pen. So let's just go back to having a chat. And do you want to ask me your questions one by one?
Any question? What was your first book?
My first book was this one, The Legend of the Lady Slipper, which I wrote with a friend of mine, Lisa Lunga Larson, who's done a number of other picture books. And so that was a long time ago, well before you were born. That was the first one. Another question?
How long did it take you to finish the book?
How long did it take me to write this book?
Yes.
Yeah. This book was one of those. If somebody asked, is it take a long time or a short time to write a book? And sometimes it takes a long time and sometimes it takes a short time. This book took a very long time. And I didn't write, here's what happened. I started writing it and it didn't quite, I don't know. I was just messing around and I couldn't quite figure out how to do it. And I put it away. I worked on other things, and in my life, I've worked in theater and I've taught classes and I raised kids and everything. So I put it in a drawer and I forgot about it. And then maybe a couple years later, I pulled it out and I worked on it some more. And this went on for a very long time. So I don't even know how long it was, but it was many years before I finished the story. And then you know what happened? I thought I was all done, and I sent it into my editor, and she said, oh, you need to do this and this and such and so and this and that and the other thing and rewrite this. And so I thought I was done, but I wasn't. My editor had lots of suggestions. So it got to be a much better book. It got to be a good book, don't you think? At the end, but it took a long time.
At our house, we have this big window, and my dad made this. My grandpa made this squirrel feeder, and we have this very fat red squirrel, and we call him Fat Squirrel because he takes all the corn out of the feeder in 1 week. And one time he had it all gone, and he went all the way inside the feeder. It was so.
Those squirrels, they're so much fun to watch. We had a squirrel-proof bird feeder that had a little ring around the bottom, which was weight sensitive. So if you were a certain weight, the holes to the food inside would close. And so most squirrels just couldn't get at the food at all. But the red squirrel, and what would happen, that little round thing that was around the outside of the feeder, if a squirrel got on there, it would spin like this. And then they'd get thrown off into the air. And we had a little red squirrel that figured out that if he hung upside down and only put one paw on that little ring, he could get his mouth inside the feeder and eat as much as he wanted. And then when he was done, he would jump down on the little ring and he would spin around like it was a carnival ride. And he would go around and around. And at a certain point, he would let go and land in the tree.
Can you let him do that?
It was quite an acrobat and very fun to watch. We just let him do it because it was so entertaining. Yeah. Anyway, so that's fun. If you guys want to attract red squirrels, you can make a little feeder out of a pine cone and some peanut butter. You just roll a pine cone around in peanut butter. And you've done that? Tie a string to it or something and put it wherever you want to see the red squirrel, and some kind of a squirrel will come. I guarantee it. Either a red or a gray squirrel.
Okay, Quinn?
Okay, another question?
What is your newest book?
She's wondering what your newest book is.
Well, the newest books that have come out, I don't have, wait, yes I do. Is the one you read, and Village of Scoundrels, which is based on a true story of a village in France that sheltered and rescued many hundreds of Jewish children and teens during World War II. And it's all the characters in it are based on real people, and you can read about them in the back of the book. And then I have another mystery, the last of my mystery series. This one just came out this fall, The Silver Box. So these take place at a northern Minnesota lake, when I'm sure you guys would all recognize all the scenes of, in this one, it's wintertime. So there's skiing and skating and snowmobiles and murder. That's the usual. So the one I'm working on now is called Windswept. And it's a fantasy about a whole village of kids who, if they go outside before they turn 15 years old, they get swept away by the wind. And some of the kids decide to go rescue their friends and siblings. And all kinds of crazy things happen. So that's what I'm working on now.
Aiden, you got a question for her?
What encouraged you to write books?
What something I didn't get?
What encouraged you to write books? Like, what was your inspiration?
Oh, inspiration for any of the books? Or yeah, I guess I kind of talked about why I wanted to write about red squirrels and voyageurs, because I really love canoeing up in those northern waters, and I've always admired the voyageurs and how hardy they were and the kind of work they did, and that they love the life. They love the life. Do you guys think you'd like being voyageurs?
Yeah. No.
No. Some yes, some no. It would be hard. I mean, it would be a hard life. So why do I really enjoy writing because for me, it's really a lot of discovery. I feel that as I write, I enjoy the little discoveries I make because I don't have it all. I don't have it planned out in my head at all. I just start writing and see what happens. And so that's really fun. And I learn a lot from my research, which is really interesting. But I also learn a lot about myself when I write, because I learn what I believe and what I think and how I feel and what matters to me. And would I I also like to think about, would I do this? Would I make this choice? Would I be as brave as many of my characters, especially the ones in this who risk their lives to help these other children? And they're just teenagers themselves when they do it. And I think, would I be so brave? Would I be willing to do that kind of hard work? It's a fun mental, it's the life of the imagination. I recommend it.
Sophie, you got a question?
Yeah, also teacher.
Or is it like a story? Okay.
Okay, so the first thing is like, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book that I wrote? Or my favorite book, period,
Book that you wrote.
that I wrote. Well, I like to say that all my books are like my children and I love them all equally. But then sometimes I say, but maybe I like this one best. This one was inspired by my great-great-grandmother's diary. She immigrated from Norway in 1851. And the story's not really about her. It's about the maid she hired aboard the boat that took them to America, who was just a young girl traveling. This is true. There was just this young girl traveling all by herself on the sailing ship going to America. She didn't have any family there. She didn't have any prospects. She didn't know anybody. And my ancestor hired her, I think, just to keep her safe. So I try to tell her story of how she manages to get on that boat. It's a hard book to describe, except for that I think she is most like me. And so it was and the book is full of references to fairy tales. And I really like fairy tales. So I got to read fairy tales the whole time I was writing it, which was really fun too. And now I'm reading fairy tales again, because there's a lot of fairy tale references in the book I just mentioned, Windswept. So maybe Windswept will be my favorite book next. I hope so.
My mom said if I find a baby squirrel that I can keep it in my laundry room.
You're going to have to translate that for me.
She said that she's been told by her mom that she can have a pet baby squirrel in her laundry room if she finds one.
Oh, well, good luck.
Well,
And it sounds like your mother's a very brave person, because squirrels, squirrels, or whoever it was that promised that, squirrels are very troublesome, let's say.
my mom's actually scared of spiders in here and pretty much everything.
Oh, that's good.
Anything else? You got one?
What kept you motivated to write the book?
Keeps me motivated.
Yes.
Well, sometimes having a contract. I think I'm motivated by, it's a challenge for me. It's like putting a challenge to yourself. Like, I'm going to run a race. So I got to get in shape and I got to practice every day. Or I want to get very good at playing the clarinet. So I'm going to practice every day. I want to win a contest. So I'm going to do this. And for me, each book is a sort of a challenge that I give myself to see if I can do it, because it's not easy. It isn't easy, not for me anyway. I mean, maybe for some writers, they can just churn these things out, but I work pretty hard when I write. And I don't even think of myself as being a good writer. I think I'm a good rewriter. I think I'm good at revision, which is my really most favorite part of writing, is revising. So I write very sloppy first drafts, and then I rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite, and it gets better and better and better and better. And so I just like to see if I can do it. Like, it's kind of a puzzle, like doing a crossword puzzle that takes a year, just to see if I can pull it off. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Who's your favorite author?
my favorite author?
Yeah.
Well, that is a very hard question to answer because I like to read and I read a lot of different kinds of things. And so picking out one favorite, usually it's like whatever book I'm reading that I'm really enjoying right now. And I'm trying to think now which of the many books I have that I'm reading would I say is my favorite book. But when I was your age, I can tell you who my favorite authors were. I liked, or the books anyway, if I can't remember the authors. Some of my favorite books were Island of the Blue Dolphins. I don't know if you've read that, but that was a good one. Harriet the Spy.
Oh yeah, I read that one.
Yeah. And Pippi Longstocking, that one maybe when I was a little bit younger. And I don't know if anybody reads that anymore, but yeah, that's good. And Nancy Drew, the Nancy Drew books were ones that I liked a lot. And I'm trying to think now. There's surely many more because I did read a lot when I was a kid. I should have those in front of me, but those are some of my favorites. Do you have another question?
I know, like a lot of us have dreams and things that we want to do when we get older that requires like special training or to go to school. So what kind of training do you have to be an author? Like, does it require college? Do you have to do anything special?
Well, there are programs in college that you can take to write, and even special ones just for writing for young readers. But you don't have to go to those. What you really have to do is read a lot and write and practice writing and keep reading and read and read and read and read and write and write and write and write and practice and try to get better and better and better. And that's really the key. And what I tell people who want to be writers is to read like a writer. So it's not just reading, because of course we read, and hopefully you all read for enjoyment and just for pleasure, and read and just sink into a book and kind of get lost in it, because that's the best and most pleasurable kind of reading there is. And so what I recommend for writers to do is to read a book like that, just read it, don't think about anything else, and then go through again and read specifically to find out how the writer achieves the effects that he or she achieves. So did you cry? Did you laugh? Did you feel scared? Were you nervous about something happening or not happening? Were you just had to keep turning the pages? If any of that's true, how did the reader make you feel like that? And you try to analyze that by looking at the techniques that the writer uses to make you cry, or to make you laugh, or to keep you turning the pages and staying up way past your bedtime because you just have to find out what happened. How does a reader manage to make that happen with just little scratches on paper, just words, very simple things that can make you feel so many ways. So that's kind of I think that's the best advice that I can give. You don't have to take any special classes, but if you want to, or you have the opportunity to, of course, it's a good idea, but that isn't a qualification.
Got one?
How long do you think it will take to finish the book you're writing right now?
Well, hopefully I'll be done at least with the the first main draft by June, because that's what my contract says. So I have a contract with the publisher to complete the book by June. And so I will work very hard between now and then to try to make that happen. It's but I started it, I started thinking about it a year ago, and I didn't really start writing it until maybe the end of summer or beginning of fall. But then, just to let you know how it works. So I won't be done. I will hand that in to my editor, and then he will make all kinds of comments and suggestions about how to improve it. And so then I'll have to go back to work on it. And maybe the changes will be small, but likely there will be some big changes too. There almost always are. And so like when you get a paperback from your teacher and she suggests that you change this or that, that's not just you. That happens to everybody, including J.K. Rowling. I'm telling you, everybody gets edited, and everybody needs it, because you just can't, you can't catch all the mistakes, and you can't see a lot of times that you maybe have just gone on too long or haven't gone on long enough, whatever. Somebody who's not you reading your papers or your stories can tell you a lot and help you a lot.
Do you ever write like one book, like 2 books at once?
Yeah, not on purpose, but it happens. No, actually, I lots of times I feel like writing makes me have more ideas. So like when I'm working on a story, I often get ideas for other stories. Does that happen to you? When you're writing, you get other ideas for other things. So sometimes I do work on a couple things at the same time. Right now I'm working on this novel, but just the other day I bumped into a little manuscript for a picture book, or I don't know, maybe. And I thought, oh, this would be fun to just dabble with, because it's so short, so easy. So when I need a break from the novel, sometimes I go and do something else, like a little short thing, like a picture book thing. So, and then sometimes what happens is I'm writing a book, but I'm revising another book or working on copy editing for another book. There's all kinds of stages that a book goes through before it's ready to be published. And so like this year I had 3 books come out, and that means the year before I was doing different things at different times with each of them.
Do you think you might finish the book that you're working on before June?
Do I?
Think you'll finish the one before June?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
He's wondering if you think you'll finish it before June. The one that you're working on.
I hope so. Keep thinking that for me.
Rosie, good question.
Yeah. When did you start writing books?
Well, I started writing plays when I was in kindergarten. I didn't get the part I wanted in the kindergarten musical, and it inspired me to write my own plays so I could star in them. And I did that through elementary school, and then in high school, I wrote homecoming sketches. And then in college, I got involved in a touring children's theater company, and I started writing for it. After college, I started a touring children's theater company, professional one, and wrote for that. And I kept writing, and then I got directed for many years a theater company in Duluth, and I wrote a lot of things for it. So I was writing all along. And then when I had children, and we started reading stories to them for bedtime, I was reminded how much I love children's stories and children's books, and it made me want to try writing them myself. So it really was having children that made me want to write for them. Maybe we have time for one more question, if there is one. Otherwise,
How many years have you been writing books?
I
Kind
can,
of goes along with what you just told us, but she's wondering how many years this
oh, how many years?
be an author.
Well, you know, I really started my my writing career 10 years ago. So, how old are you?
10.
Yep. So we're celebrating our 10 years of your life and my life as a writer. And that's probably a good place to sign off and say goodbye, because I think that we're I think that,
Well, I guess there's one last question if you have time for it.
okay, well, one more question.
Okay, go ahead, Eden.
How many books have you wrote?
I have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 novels and 4 picture books. How much does that add up to? Lucky 13. Okay. So I want to thank you very much for your good questions and for being such a good audience and hanging in there with me, and for reading The Littlest Voyageur and for reading lots of other things too, I hope. So I'm going to say goodbye, and we'll good luck to you if you want to be writers. I say start writing, and I hope you'll all be readers throughout your life and stay interested.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Bye. Bye.